My name is Chris Elliott, and today we have Alex with us. He built an Amazon empire starting with zero capital and making $15 million in 6 years.
Alex, how did you come to research the right products for your Amazon store? What markets did you check? Did you import them? Did you use any special tools for it?
Yeah, so I'll answer it with two different caps on. First off, kind of the arbitrage hat on, where it's a lot more rudimentary. It's really about looking at the data for what is selling. The business model of arbitrage is actually quite simple, which has its pros and cons. I guess the pros really are that you don't have to worry about too much. You just have to worry about getting it as cheap as possible and how or at what price you can possibly sell it at. You don't need to work about marketing. You don't need to worry about trying to increase the price or anything like that. Does this buy price work for this sell price and move forward? So a lot of the research is very numbers based. It's what can I buy this product at? Does it sell? And what could I sell it for? And does that profit then make sense for the risks that we're taking? The software we use for that predominantly is SellerAmp. It's a piece of software that was developed by a former arbitrage seller, Al Carton, super nice guy. Keeper, which is a industry standard really for kind of data analysis. And then we have a profit dashboarding. I know you use Sellerboard, I use Seller Toolkit, much the same, but just something where we can see how things are going in terms of profitability. The other piece of software that you definitely do need is what's called a repricer, which will be adjusting your prices automatically so you're not having to constantly check it all the time. And it's really important to do that because if you're not priced competitively, you won't get any sales. So all the effort you put into sourcing and researching before buying the product will be kind of wasted because you're just not priced effectively. And all these pieces of software are actually really, really cheap. So I think SellerAmp I pay, I think £150 for the year. So that's give or take £10 a month. Keeper is €19 a month. Again, not that much money. Seller Toolkit is about £15 or £20 a month. Not that much money. And then the repricer is also, so Seller Toolkit has two. It has the profit dashboard, but also the repricer built in. And that costs about £20 for that. So all in all, it's not a very expensive kind of software setup. When it comes to private label, that's where there's a lot more upfront research because you're going to be spending a lot more capital. With arbitrage, you can spend £5, £10 or whatever on one unit of one thing and then test and see how it goes. With private label, you're having to make a much bigger purchase quantity, 200, 300, 400 units at a time. And it's also the labor cost that's going to go into it. Your time of researching whether this particular product with these adaptations or improvements is going to sell. And even then, there's a bit of risk when it comes to it. So when it comes to private label, the real big thing that you want to be looking at, and the market has moved. Like if you asked me 5 or 6 years ago where private label was at, it was really about the kind of industry standard was just see what someone else is doing and it's selling really well. And then just copy what they've done and just improve on a few things, improve the listing, very, very basic kind of improvements, kind of level 1, we'd call it. Improve the listing, improve the pictures, and then kind of just send it back out. That's been done to death now. And that kind of approach and that kind of methodology, if someone's selling that, it just does not work. Like those kind of low-hanging fruit opportunities are just not there. Within private label, fundamentally, the bar has been raised. You really do need to put in the legwork into product research and actually really understand the customer avatar. What do they want? So I wouldn't say necessarily that the cost of entry in terms of having to buy more inventory has gone up. It's more about the time cost. It's not as you can just throw some mud at the wall and see what sticks. Because everyone can just look at a listing that's doing well and try and improve the pictures. It's actually really drilling down and understanding the customer's needs and what do they actually want out of this product. So now it's kind of moved more towards differentiation. How are you going to differentiate this product? And that then also gets supported by the other metrics. Like how do you know that this thing is going to sell? And in the private label space, keyword analysis is far, far more important. And that's the general traffic that people are searching for. Like how are people going to find this item? Much like footfall on a high street, you want to make sure that there's enough footfall going to be going past the store, i.e. your product, where you're going to place it. And the different keywords are all the different routes, and the more routes there are that you could possibly be at the intersection of, the better. And again, that all kind of comes part of the product selection, product research kind of phase to make sure that you give yourself the best chance of success. So yeah, it's definitely the bar has raised with that. And in terms of private label, the staples really there are Helium 10. It has a lot of stuff in there. You can use Jungle Scout. I personally prefer Helium 10. It works better in the European marketplaces, I feel, than Jungle Scout. I like the interface a bit more. I actually also used or have used Titan Tools, which is part of the Titan Mastermind. You only get access to that if you're a Titan and you pay for that mastermind. It's actually a very good mastermind. They are on the bleeding edge of private label. Well worth joining if you're kind of in that space. Not cheap, but worth the money. And that really is towards building and developing products. You still do need a profit dashboard because really interesting. We were saying earlier, I've met, and I know people who have met, a fair few kind of 7, 8, 9-figure sellers who actually either don't know their profitability or know it and they're not making any money. So you really do need to have a good grounding on your book. So overarching across all of them is having a good handle on your business numbers. And that goes across any business it is, So we use Xero for accounting, and it's super, super important to make sure that those are up to date as quickly and often as possible. And you do review those regularly because you want to know how the business is doing in terms of health-wise, and to make those critical decisions, whether you kill a product line or you kill a division like we did. The EU just wasn't producing the fruit for the kind of return on capital employed that we wanted, and we made the decision to just cull it. We gave it enough time to say, hey, if this doesn't improve, it's just not worth the time and effort that we're putting into to get this return back. We'd rather focus that on the other teams, and you make that tough call just to cut it. You can only make that call when you can do it just finger in the air, gut feeling. But the better way of doing things is if you have the data to support it, which you'll get from your profit dashboards, and more importantly, your accounting software, Xero, QuickBooks, Sage, whichever one it is that you decide to use. Those are kind of the fundamental ones. Other bits and bobs, everything else can be outsourced. Private label, if you can have some Photoshop stuff, but you can also outsource that. The only fundamental one that you really need to own is Helium 10, and within that'll kind of contain everything that you need. You don't need Keeper, you don't need SellerAmp, you don't need any of the other software when it comes to private label. It's just kind of Helium 10.
And Alex, you were talking about the repricer. Can you tell me a bit more about that? Because we, on our Amazon store, we don't use it since now. Okay, we have started the Amazon business since now nearly 1 year. We have about 20 products, but we are adjusting the prices manually. So why should we also use it, or why should the audience also use that tool?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So repricers are a fundamental part of the arbitrage seller, mainly because you have multiple merchants on a single listing. And so you're really all competing to be the featured offer, the buy box as it's called. And prices is, no one knows what the Amazon algorithm or for the buy box is how they select it. But we do know that price is a major factor. So when it comes to private label, though, it's a little bit different because there's just going to be one merchant on the one listing. So you're not really competing with anyone on the listing. However, you do have competition. And so it's a case of making sure that your price is competitive relative to other listings of a similar type. So for example, if you're selling 50 masks, someone else who's got a listing for 50 masks, you want to make sure that you're not too far off their price. Or similarly, if someone's selling 25 masks, you want to make sure that you are cheaper than double that, because otherwise they would just go ahead and buy 2 of those. Amazon, because especially when you're Amazon Prime, as you know, you don't, as the buyer, you don't pay for shipping. So buying 2 lots of 25 versus 1 lot of 50, you're actually no worse off. So it's actually very simple for the buyer to make that decision. But as a seller, that means that we have to be a bit more creative and keep our eyes on stuff. So repricers come in all different shapes and sizes. You can have stuff that's like 10 or 15 pounds a month, very, very rudimentary. They will change the price up and down. And you even have one built into to Seller Central. So Amazon provides you one. Although that one is super, super simple. And often, I can't remember the last time I actually looked at it, it's not something you really want to be using when you run your business. You can get a really good repricer for like 20 or 25 pounds a month. And they're far more intelligent. You can set up lots of different rules that say, like, if this happens, do this. If inventory ages over this amount, do this. And you get some really fancy ones. Like in the US, we have a repricer called SellerSnap. And that costs $200 a month, $250 a month, thereabouts. And that's, AI. They put AI in it. I'm not 100% convinced about the AI part. I take it at face value, but I'm more interested in the number of kind of triggers and automations that you can do. And so that one's I find more interesting because you can then look to target on sell-through rate. So when you come to private label, you probably want a repricer that is more attuned to private label sellers. So if you know that you're selling, this item A, and optimally you're selling 50 or 100 units a month, you can have the repricer set such that continues to try and achieve that. So we'll keep measuring the sell-through rate and make sure that it adjusts the price accordingly. So if you start to sell too fast, it might raise the price to try and slow down sales. If you start to sell too slow, it will reduce the price to kind of then start to pick things up at the end of the day. I don't think it's necessarily like something you have to have in private label, because other sellers tend to be doing things manually. But it's definitely something you want to keep an eye on. It's something to experiment with. Like, I'm always very keen to just try and experiment with stuff and see how it goes. Are you getting more back than you're putting in? And yes, there are some reprices out there that are quite smart, where you can load up your competition set and say, here's my 5 competitors that are like for like with my listing, and I want you to price me accordingly against them. So if someone does a sale, you want to go down with them so that you're never the lowest one. Or you might not. You might allow them to just be on sale for a period of time and say, I'll let them have their fun. That's actually too close to my break even. I don't want to do that, and then come back up. But it's very, business specific about the needs for it. You might also just be the dominant one in the market, in which case, the difference again between private label and arbitrage. In arbitrage, you are a price taker. We set our prices, but like, I can say I want £100 for this bag of sugar. It doesn't mean someone's going to buy it. If someone else is wanting to sell it at £5, they will get the buy box, and that's where the sales will go. So we're a price taker. The market tells us what price is acceptable. The other competitors tell us what price we will have to sell at if we want to make any sales. Private label, if you build up your kind of listing and you build up your reviews and you build up kind of the brand value, you have the ability to add a premium above what it is. So someone could be half your price, but because you've got 10 or 20,000 reviews, it's that kind of social proof. And that's really what you're trying to build up, is you kind of, when you start off those listings, you kind of go a bit cheaper, and you're really fighting, and you want to kind of get as much social proof reviews as possible, build them up so that you can start then creeping up your prices. Going back to what I said earlier on about that kind of that product selection, product research within private label, one of the things is, you need to make sure before you launch the product that you can do this kind of sale period where you can put it on sale and you're going to kind of break even. But there's also the possibility, like, you could eventually be able to increase your price such that you get to nice healthy margins. Because there's no point in launching a product if eventually you're not going to be able to get to the desired margin, because the market's just not there. It's just not a winning product at the end of the day. So again, that kind of all goes back into the very, very start of before you even launch the product. Is it worth going down this route? What does the future look like? Can we get there? So with private label, the repricing, again, is very subjective. So you might know that your product is just fundamentally better than another. You have 10,000 5-star reviews and they have 100 3-star reviews. You're not really comparing apples for apples, You might say, well, we want to price the same as them plus 20% or plus 30%. Again, it's product and customer specific, because you might know that if your consumers are really, really price sensitive, then that percentage that you add onto it has to be a lot lower. Someone might say, oh, it's got 3 stars. However, being £1 cheaper or €1 cheaper is actually a bigger deal breaker for them. If you're talking about something like in the baby space, parents are they're less price sensitive. They're more safety conscious. So they will pay an extra 100% higher for a product which they deem to be, super safe and it's going to look after their child. So again, it's customer avatar specific, and that's really down to the business owner, the brand manager to understand that and know which levers they can pull. It's not a one size fits all. I can't sit here and say like, you should do this or you should that. You've got to know your customer at the end of the day. And a lot of people, unfortunately, started these businesses that I've met, and they just kind of went for a product which sold well. They're like, oh, I'm just going to do this thing, it sells well. And they actually don't love the product. They actually don't love the customer, which makes it actually very hard to build something great. They can build something good, but to build something great, you've really got to understand the customer needs and what the pain points are and what they really value. Because if you don't, you're always going to be kind of one step behind at the end of the day. But like, I just know that, I just know that about parents, that they are not so, I would say they're not so cheap, it's not the right word for it, but they value safety. And you will have people spending far more than they actually need to, because they believe it's the kind of the fear that if they don't spend it, something bad could happen. But in another market where someone's talking about very commoditized products, like I always use the example of nail clippers, people are very, very price sensitive there, because a nail clipper is a nail clipper is a nail clipper. No one's going to spend €20 on a nail clipper when they can buy a very, very similar, if not the same product for €3. It's just not going to happen. Doesn't matter how many reviews you have. You could have 50,000 reviews and they could have one. People just aren't going to spend 20 euros on a nail clipper when they can buy a very similar product or the same one on Amazon side by side for 3 euros. There isn't the opportunity to build brand value and to build that kind of social proof that's going to then relate to higher sales. It's just understanding the product, understanding the avatar at the end of the day.
And this is a very interesting question, actually. Do you think Amazon is dead? Can you still make good business in Amazon with, say, a few thousand euro a month, or do you need to invest a lot of money, a lot of time, have people working for you? Because there's so many businesses out there in each country, big and small business owners, but maybe some of them are not even making any profits. Maybe only 2,000 or 3,000 euro profit a month. But the work they're putting in, is it compared to something else, you can do something more easier, having more profit, working less. Because of course Amazon is very competitive. There's so many sellers, as just mentioned, and people just want to sell the products there. There's always the buyers, and if you are returning some products back, the seller has to pay these return fees. So that's always deducting the profit. And once you do start Amazon and you're growing and growing, can you get out of Amazon again? Because that's a source of income. You invest a lot of products on your time. So so the question, is Amazon actually dead? Is it still profitable? Should you advise people to do business?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. Is Amazon dead? I mean, it gets asked quite a lot, and there's a lot of naysayers out there that say it is. People say it's not. The people who tend to say it's not are the people trying to sell you the course to get you to sell on Amazon. I'm always kind of very impartial with these things, and I think it really goes back to what do you want out of it? What are you trying to achieve here at the end of the day? And that will tell you whether Amazon is the right sales channel for you. So it's not starting from I'm going to sell on Amazon and does it work? It's one step backwards. It's what am I trying to build? And then is Amazon the right distribution channel for that thing? And that's it, because it's a lot of people, and this is the mistake I made, and a lot of people still are making, is that Amazon becomes the whole business. It becomes the entire machine. Whereas I feel it should be a cog within the machine. So if you have an e-commerce business, you choose to have Amazon as a distribution channel. It's a means to an end. It's one amongst many distribution channels. Amazon actually makes it super easy and kind of addictive in a way to sell on there, because they take care of payments, they take care of traffic, they take care of hosting, they take care of fulfillment and storage and all these things. All you got to do is send them the product and they'll take care of the rest. But what you kind of don't realize is that you are getting further and further into their grasp, such that you suddenly it's super easy doing this, but actually then becomes really difficult to get out. So, I say no, Amazon is not dead, but you need to understand or need to know yourself, why are you getting into this? And a lot of times, individual entrepreneurs will want to, they think it's just easy money. They want to put in a minimum amount of time and get the maximum amount of money back. And unfortunately, that just does not work. Those days are long gone. I don't even think they were there to begin with. It is a full-fledged business. It is something that you've got to put the time and effort in, just between the repricing, between the product selection, the purchasing, the staff management, the bookkeeping, the advertising. All these things take time. It's not something that you can just kind of do, off the side. If you do want to do it that way, you've also got to then limit your expectations. But people don't. They want to do 1 or 2 hours a night or 1 or 2 hours a week and come out with 10 grand of profit every single month. It just doesn't work like that, unfortunately. If you want to do it as a little side hustle and have an extra few thousand a month, then that's perfectly fine. And you're going to put in a minimum amount of time and effort to do that. But you've also got to expect that it's not going to grow to some multi-million-dollar business, because you're not putting in the effort and resources that's going to get it there at the end of the day. So it's having that kind of honest and frank realization and chat with yourself about where is this going to go. I think building a full-on Amazon-dependent brand or business, if you're doing arbitrage, we'll call that Amazon business, versus an Amazon brand or a brand that's sold on Amazon, is not the way to go forward. And I'll say that having done, umpteen million in sales on there, I do not think that is the way forward. And I say that for a number of different reasons. One, I have been an acquirer of Amazon native brands or e-commerce brands. And if someone approached me now and said, I've got this brand, of coffee or whatever it is, I'd have a look at it and I'd say, right, where are most of your sales coming from? and they say, oh, like 99% of our sales come from Amazon, or 90% come from Amazon, immediate no. Like just a straight no. And I know I'm not the only one who thinks this way, you know, because Amazon itself is not always a stable platform. Things happen to your listings, things happen to your account. And we had this chat, the other week about kind of VAT and money getting frozen. I've had my Amazon account, my Amazon US account shut down 3 times in the last year. Went from 150 grand to 0 in the blink of an eye. I had my disbursements frozen in Q4 of 2020, like what was going to be the COVID, biggest Q4 there's ever been. And we went from, Amazon was owing us hundreds of thousands of pounds in disbursements, thinking if we were going to have to go bankrupt, whilst everyone else is counting all their money. And I'm just like, how does this work? Like, how is this possible that we've grown to such a size and we still like have this this marketplace risk at the end of the day? So I'd say you want to have a well-diversified business that uses Amazon as a distribution channel. It's fantastic if you just want to use it as a little side hustle and give you an extra few thousand or £100 or whatever it is per month. You can definitely do that on there. But if you want to grow to something bigger, then you really need to rethink the approach. Like, it needs to be a cog within the machine. I think it's fantastic to also just dip your toe in and get to know about selling online and get to figure out if that's something that you want to do. I do think there's opportunities on there. As I said earlier, the bar has been fundamentally raised. Like, the barrier to entry is just higher. There are people now that are going onto Amazon and selling on Amazon, like professional companies that have deeper pockets. So the advertising costs, for example, are going up. Those individuals are willing to sustain no profit or losses on some of their new products for a prolonged period in order to kind of get market dominance and go forward. They just have deeper pockets. So you're going to have to be a lot more nimble, a lot more innovative. And that's what I was saying about the people who will really win are the ones who are really connected to the customer avatar. They're really delivering on a need at the end of the day. It's not just someone who says, I want to be a business owner, I want to be a seller. Like, that's not what it's about. It's about solving customer needs. And actually say that, there's a vast majority of entrepreneurs and even online sellers who they want to be an entrepreneur or business owner more than they should be. They haven't necessarily got the desire to sell this product or desire to serve this customer. They just have the greater desire to be a business owner. And for me, that's always going to put you one step behind, and you're always going to be on the back foot, and you're always going to be, when the going gets tough, it's going to be like, oh, this is too much effort. Like, there's a lot of ups and downs in this game, and when the going gets tough, you've got to really I feel you've got to love what you're doing and to kind of see you through that. So really, it's not a case of like, is Amazon dead? It's more, is it appropriate? Is it an appropriate distribution channel for the type of business that you want to build? And then even before that, why are you getting into this? Like, why do you want to suddenly start making physical products for this customer avatar? And if you haven't got that reason as to why, then it's not even a question about, is Amazon dead? It's like, you should not be an entrepreneur. You should not be building this business because you just want to have a laptop lifestyle and things like that, and it's never going to really amount to anything. You're going to build an okay business, a mediocre business, maybe even a good one, but it's not going to be something that's going to be a great business at the end of the day. I think there's far more entrepreneurs out there than there actually needs to be, really, and that's just a harsh take on things, but I meet them all the time.
Interesting, Alex. So this was part 2 with Alex on his Amazon journey, and on the next part we will continue with the questions about Amazon and discuss also his future plans on what he's going to do, where he's going to live, and everything else. So stay tuned.